Uh-oh, she's in a different spot this week. Whoa, what are we gonna do? Okay, hi. Sometimes it's nice to just get a new perspective. So, I found that book in line at a bookstore in one of those aisle, you know what I mean, where they're trying to get you to buy one more thing. And normally that stuff I'm not interested in, but that's a good book, if I may say so. And the reason I decided to pick that book today is because we're celebrating the 200th anniversary of the American Unitarian Association. And that book includes some of the hallmarks of Unitarianism. Some of us may be more familiar with it than others, so I'll take you through it. So we are Unitarian Universalists, but that was a merger. Before, there was Unitarians, and there were Universalists, and we're kind of focused on the Unitarians today. The Unitarians, I like to think of them as the brain, and the Universalists as the heart. So the Unitarians are real nerdy. They love to talk about, not kidding, they love to talk about the importance of the unique individual, just like that book did, curiosity and learning, the oneness, Unitarian, the oneness of the ultimate being the divine, or whatever you consider the biggest big to be. Wonder and awe at the universe, just like the book says, and the connectedness between the individual and the greater wholeness. So although they value the individual, it isn't the same as an individualism that's like self only. Then we get into trouble. So today, I'm going to walk you through an extremely fast course of Unitarian history. And since today we're talking about the 200th anniversary of the American Unitarian Association, we're going to focus on that. So before that, the ancient old stuff, I'm going to zip through it really fast. And so I need our tech crew to buckle up, because, yeah, okay, Gina's giving me the thumbs up. And here's why. I probably shouldn't have included this in the sermon, but I got carried away because it's so interesting to me. So just bear with me. Okay, are we ready? Okay. First, we have the Arians. Don't worry, not that kind. The Arians, the Arians. Now, these folks started as a Christian heresy by this guy Arius of North Africa in like 318 CE. So Christianity was still really new. They were figuring out, what the hell is this? And this dude was like, you know, what if Jesus is not the same as God the Father? What if Jesus is just a cool dude and God is one, not three? Obviously, the guys who ended up deciding it didn't like that. So Arius didn't use the word Unitarian. That's a more modern label, but it was close enough. Someone summed up his argument by saying, if the Father begat the Son, then he that was begotten had a beginning, so he can't be eternal. But if God the Father and Jesus are different beings, the whole monotheistic thing gets a little complicated, so that this whole thing got nixed at the Council of Nicaea, and his writings were burned. Yeah, there's a image of it from a few hundred years later. Next, we've got Photinus, who said that Jesus was human and not divine as well. So this is the theme of these early Christian Unitarians. They started Christian. Then next, we've got Michael Servetus. This is way a few hundred years later, back in the Renaissance. He wrote this book called On the Errors of the Trinity. And again, it was this God is one, not three thing. Maybe God manifested as Jesus, so Jesus was divine, but Jesus isn't distinct from God. It's not a three-part thing. It's just God. And Martin Luther and John Calvin loathed this dude. They wrote all sorts of diss tracts about him. They were all over it. And the Catholic Church ended up burning him at the stake on a pile of his own books, just for saying, like, hey, what if it's different? Wild. Later in the Renaissance, we're here in Europe with the Unitarians, we had this uncle and nephew, Fausto and Lelio Sozzini, seen here winning first and second place at the Big Forehead contest. Sorry, Fausto, okay. They were pretty cool. They were free thinkers. Yes, they were all about tolerance, including with people with big foreheads. Like me. They said that Jesus was a distinctly moral figure. He was an important guy, but not divine. They rejected the doctrine of the original sin, and they were Renaissance humanists. You know, the Renaissance was a wild time where people were thinking all new thoughts and doing philosophies and stuff, and these guys were like, hey, what about Jesus? So they spawned this whole group of people called the Socinians. And for a while, the word Unitarian didn't exist yet. It was Socinians or Arians. Then we've got the Edict of Torda, which I've talked a little bit about before, so we're not going to get too far into it. But essentially, this was the first known declaration of semi-religious tolerance. These folks in Transylvania weren't vampires. These folks in Transylvania were close to Western Christianity, Eastern Christianity, and some Islam that was coming up out of the Middle East. And so they were like, hey, what if instead of killing each other, what if we just chill, you know? Yes. And Francis David, seen here definitely not giving a Nazi salute because Nazis didn't exist yet. He was just like, hey, what if we just tolerate each other? So this was a big moment, and it helped create the Unitarian Church in Eastern Europe. Then we move on to England. There's a lot of drama in England going on, including the first use of the word Unitarian, but we don't have time to get into it today. So next slide. Oh no, next slide again. Yes, there we go. Sorry, England. We don't have time for you today. There's all sorts of stuff, Scotland, Ireland, they're all involved, but we don't have time. Okay, so now we're finally on to the American Unitarians. So this is where I can slow down a little bit. The American Unitarianism is actually older than America. In 1822, this is obviously more recent than America, Thomas Jefferson boasted, I confidently expect that the present generation will see Unitarianism become the general religion of the United States, which is pretty big thing for Thomas Jefferson to say. Pretty smart dude. So it was an exciting time for the Unitarians. So before America officially existed, Unitarianism kind of started at Harvard. Yeah. Because Harvard itself, yes, thank you. Harvard itself started as a seminary. It started as a school for training clergy members. And it just so happens to be where I went to divinity school. Pictured here. After the Revolutionary War, everything seemed possible. Everything was up in the air. Hey, we could overthrow kings. What else can we do? So young clergy were getting these wild ideas, and elders started calling them Unitarians as like a slur, to be like, oh, these rebellious Unitarians. Bleh. But they started accepting it. They started claiming that word. Then we had this young man named William Ellery Channing. Oh, also there's this quote, oh, sorry, go back one, I forgot this one. So this is more recent, but Samuel Blumenfeld said, the takeover of Harvard in 1805 by the Unitarians is probably the most important intellectual event in American history, at least from the standpoint of education. Unitarians were all over early American history. If you go to Boston, you can't walk 5 feet without running into a Unitarian monument of some. Hanning, seen here looking like a cute little elf. He got invited to give the sermon at his friend's ordination in Baltimore. And usually at an ordination sermon, you talk about like the duties of the clergy and the wonderful honor and blah, blah, blah. Instead, he decided to drop a huge bomb of theology on everybody. And he was like, Unitarian Christianity is now a thing, and I'm rejecting the Trinity. I believe in human goodness and the use of reason in theology. Whoa. This picture is the first Unitarian church in Baltimore where he gave that sermon. It's still a Unitarian Universalist church, and it's actually where we're having our General Assembly this summer. Is going to be in Baltimore, and so you can see this church firsthand, which is very exciting. I got to go to this church in 2019 when my history professor gave the 200th anniversary speech from the pulpit where William Ellery Channing gave the speech. And this is us pictured afterwards trying to decide whether or not to go get a beer. So, Unitarianism continued in early America, and there were two important offshoots. You know, Protestant Christianity loved to schism, so we had a couple schisms too. First, we had the Transcendentalists. Anybody heard of them? Yeah, they're pretty cool. So the Transcendentalists included people like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, Louisa May Alcott, who wrote Little Women, Theodore Parker, and Walt Whitman. These were all Transcendentalists who kind of started Unitarian, and then they got too hippie. Like, they were like, the Unitarians are these like stodgy old professors. The cool, radical, rebellious Unitarians had become the old guard. And so these folks who were younger at the time were like, what if divinity pervades all nature and humanity? And what if we hold progressive views on things like feminism and communal living? They were really, really cool and rad at the time. And so they began seeking wisdom in religions other than Christianity. They were really interested in Hinduism, Buddhism, a lot of the stuff coming out of the East. And the Transcendentalists were not only a philosophical, but a literary group. And they actually were the first homegrown literary movement in America. Pretty cool. Now there's this book, I don't know if you've heard of Alison Bechdel. You can go to the next slide, sorry, I forgot to highlight this one. So Alison Bechdel, who wrote the comic Fun Home, also wrote a more recent book called The Secret to Superhuman Strength. It's a graphic novel, well, illustrated text, it's nonfiction, where she talks all about transcendentalism. It's really beautiful and amazing. You get a lot of cool Unitarian history. Highly recommend this book. Our next offshoot, other than the Transcendentalists, was the Humanists. Now, I know you all have probably heard of the Humanists, right? So the Humanist Manifesto was created, I believe, in 1933, but there was a lot of people thinking this kind of stuff earlier than that. A guy named Abner Neeland was actually the last man in America jailed for blasphemy, and he was a Unitarian and a humanist. He was doubting the belief in God, and he got arrested for it. Pretty rad. Then there were people like John Dietrich, who was a Unitarian minister and is known as the father of religious humanism. A lot of people, they know his name regarding humanism, but they don't know he was also a Unitarian. When the Humanist Manifesto was created in 1933, declaring like, hey, what if we can be religious and moral without believing in God? The majority of the people who signed this document were Unitarian ministers. A few rabbis, some scientists, but all over the place, it's Unitarians. And for those who don't know, humanism is a progressive philosophy of life that, without theism or other supernatural beliefs, affirms our ability and responsibility to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment that aspire to the greater good. The first national membership organization, the American Humanist Association, was the first national membership organization of any kind to support abortion rights in America, which is pretty amazing. And over the years, American Humanists of the Year, they give this award, Humanists of the Year, have included people like Margaret Sanger, who helped invent birth control, Abraham Maslow, you may have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Betty Friedan, who helped start the second wave of feminism, Carl Sagan, Isaac Asimov, Margaret Atwood, Kurt Vonnegut, former UU president Bill Schultz, Bill Nye, Gloria Steinem, and Anthony Fauci. Thanks, Anthony. So all of these people are humanists, and they had a platform to work from to be ethical non-theists, partially because of the work that Unitarians did. So now we're back from the offshoots, and we're back to the American Unitarian Association, which was founded in 1825, 200 years tomorrow. Very exciting. It's not that exciting. But American Unitarians have always been involved in social justice. Unitarians helped found the NAACP, if you can believe it, working together with Black Americans. They also helped found the ACLU, which I don't know if you've been hearing lately, but the ACLU is holding the line. Thank goodness for the ACLU. American Unitarians also had the first woman to be ordained in the US, Antoinette Brown Blackwell. We supported progressive education, public schools, and universities. We were often anti-war. We were abolitionists. We've always been involved in the front lines of progress. And in the 1960s, we merged with the Universalists, who I'll talk about another day. And it was because the Unitarians had a lot of money and the Universalists had a lot of people. So, yeah, it worked out pretty nicely. So the Unitarian Service Committee had this symbol that they created during World War II. A few of them, the Unitarians, went over to Europe to help get Jews out of different places in Europe, but mainly Nazi Germany, and they needed a symbol to stamp on their paperwork to look official. And so they had a Jewish refugee create this symbol for them, and it involves the flaming chalice, which we see here today. He was a Jewish refugee, and the Jews hold this symbol of the eternal flame really sacred, and so we also carry that history and heritage with us. Then, the Universalists had this Universalist circle where they had the cross offset to say, we include everybody. It's not centered on us. We include all things. And so when they merged, they create this symbol of the UU flaming chalice, which you may recognize, and which you can see here again with the double circles, because it's this overlapping Venn diagram. We don't all have to be the same, but we share some things in common. And we keep this flame, this energy of progress, as well as this embracing, comforting, healing chalice. We keep this symbol alive. The Unitarian Universalists merged in the 60s, and they started to become multi-faith. So they started to be like, well, okay, if we think God is one, and if we think God loves everybody, then we kind of have to include everybody. We can't just be Christian anymore. So today we've got Universalists who are Christian, who are Jewish, pagan, atheists like myself, Buddhists, Hindu, Muslim. We've got literally everybody. And we've got people who just don't know what they are, who are just curious, who are figuring it out. Unitarian Universalists passed their first resolution for gay, lesbian, and bisexual rights in 1970, way before anybody else, and have supported equal marriage strongly across the continent. I believe, I'm blanking on her name right now, but the woman who was involved in the Supreme Court suit that got marriage equality legalized, I believe was a Unitarian Universalist. And a lot of UU ministers were some of the earliest clergy to marry gay people. Now, we had the first woman ordained minister, Antoinette Brown Blackwell, who I mentioned earlier. We also had the first openly gay ordained minister, James Lewis Stoll. Now we continue to affirm the responsible search for truth and meaning, the inherent worthiness and dignity of all people, and the sacredness of life on earth. We're suing the Trump administration, along with other progressive religions like the Quakers, to say, you can't stop us from helping immigrants. We see it as our sacred duty to be there for other people. We have a lot of different organizations that are part of Unitarian Universalism. One of them is the UU Service Committee, and it does a lot of international justice work. Its focuses are on international justice, climate justice, and migration justice. These are some of our priorities as a faith movement. And this summer, we have our annual General Assembly. This is our big conference that we have every year. Every other year now, it's in person, and then the alternating years, it's online. This year, we're in person, and we're going to be in Baltimore, where William Ellery Channing gave that first Unitarian sermon, because it's the 200th anniversary of the AUA. But General Assembly, if you've never been, it's like going to UU Hogwarts, except a lot less transphobic. It's going to be June 18th through the 22nd. It's really fun. There's these huge worship services, thousands of people wearing rainbow tie-dye and punk shirts and all kinds of cool stuff. There's workshops, there's booths selling cool clothes and stickers and things like that. And there's business that we get to attend to because, again, we value democracy, we value voting, and so we make decisions together. Each congregation sends delegates to General Assembly. We get 6 delegates based on our size. I believe we have 5. We may need one more. So if you're interested in being a delegate, you can do it from home. You just let me know. Some of the things we'll be doing at General Assembly include something called an action of immediate witness. This is where we decide together on social issues that are important to us so that we can act together, so that congregations can move in concert on important issues. Some of the ones we're going to be working on this summer are defiance of authoritarianism, global LGBTQ freedom, and a statement called all people are inherently worthy and have inalienable rights, which supports things like, I don't know, due process. We're going to be working on things like prison abolition, the housing crisis, and we're going to be doing some more internal things like electing UUA board members, our nominating committee members, and our moderators who help kind of lead the General Assembly process. Now, like I said, we get these 6 delegates and we get to vote. And if you decide to go in person, you can go whether or not you're a delegate. And there's really fun events. There's like this banner parade where every congregation has a banner and like marches through the hall together. Our banners are actually on display in the hallway today, so you can check those out. We have 2. I don't know why, but that's great. And we're gonna parade them. There's workshops on things like transgender protections, deportation defense, Star Wars resistance. I mean, anything and everything you can think of. There's also these events like the Service of the Living Tradition where new ministers or retired ministers get honored. I'll be walking in that this year because I became a minister last year. There's also events like Bridging where we celebrate our young people who are graduating high school and taking their place in the adult world. And there's these beautiful, innovative, unique worship services. We will be streaming the GA service the following Sunday on June 29th. We'll be showing it here in the sanctuary. That will be our worship that day. So if you decide to come, you'll get to see the GA worship service. If you want to go to GA, people under 35 or people with marginalized identities can get price reductions, can get financial support to go. And if you want to attend online or in person, I'm committed to helping you do that. ORUUC will help you reduce your costs of travel or of registration. And again, you can go in person or online. Online costs are a lot less. But it's an amazing experience. And if you're interested, you just come let me know. Whew, okay. So I've given you a tour through Unitarianism. These are our values: transformation, equity, pluralism, interdependence, justice, generosity, all centered on love. This is a proud and ancient tradition. It's not just 200 years old. It goes way back to the beginning of Christianity. Back even before Christianity, to any idea that the divine or the universe is one and we're part of it. And that's a really ancient idea. We value each unique individual. We value the wondrous beauty and connectedness of this universe, the necessity of science and reason, and the honor and duty of social justice. This is the kind of stuff we're about. And Unitarians continue to affirm that humans have incredibly special skills. We're not separate from nature, but we've evolved some special skills to help steward nature and to change the course of history. We're not passive watchers. We're partners with that great oneness, partners with life itself that sees through our eyes and acts with our hands. We live in a Unitarian world where many faiths coexist, one where women and LGBTQ people and people of color seek their destinies just as anyone else can, one where a curious mind can open the secrets of the universe. When we look around and we see science and multiple faiths and different kind of people existing together, that's part of the influence of Unitarianism on the world. Those values are being contested today. There are forces that don't want difference, that want uniformity and obedience, and we're not about that. We are the defenders of these values. ORUUC, this congregation, began before the Unitarians and the Universalists merged. It began as a Unitarian church specifically. And you can see that in our history and in our present day. ORUUC is a haven for scientists and always has been, for creative thinkers, for artists and book nerds. We affirm and adore and include lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, and intersex people. We think having a woman as a minister is fine. Radical. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's not an idea that everybody agrees with these days. We think that women can choose what we do with our bodies. We think that women can be leaders or homemakers or gardeners or teachers or anything we wish. We support and affirm our Jewish neighbors, our pagan members, our atheist minister and friends, and our Christian members and neighbors. We're obviously cool with Islam too, but it just kind of hasn't really come up yet. Sorry, I thought that joke would land a little bit better. We try to make things accessible and inclusive for people with disabilities. We delight in teaching our children the differences and the wonders about our world, not just a narrow view and an obedience to an unseen father figure. This is a congregation that has always been and continues to be a beacon of these liberal values. And I don't mean liberal in the partisan sense, but liberal in the sense of a free and liberatory expansiveness. Unitarianism is not just some abstract theory on the nature of God. It's about those beliefs and curiosities that destine us in our everyday life. What does it mean for us if the divine is one? What does it mean for us if the prophets are human? Or if there's no God at all? What would that mean? What if we can just ask the questions? The questions are worth asking, and the questioners deserve the freedom to do so. That's what Unitarianism is all about. The search for truth, meaning, safety, and freedom of weirdos and outsiders and well-meaning activists. I love being a Unitarian Universalist. It is an honor and privilege to be your minister, to get to geek out with you a little bit about this kind of stuff, and to hopefully inspire you that this humble congregation that you're a part of is part of something bigger, and so are you. In fact, you always have been. What history are you going to make in the name of Unitarianism? I look forward to telling the world about it, maybe in the not-so-distant future. It has been a mere 200 years since the founding of the American Unitarian Association. But Unitarianism as a spirit and an idea is much older, and we are its inheritors. I certainly intend that this amazing tradition is going to last another couple hundred years at least. And so will planet Earth, and so will humanity. Each one of you is part of this grand tradition. It has shaped the world, and so can you. May it be so.